The paradox of human desire. Humans are curious creatures, endlessly chasing what seems just out of reach. There's a peculiar tension in our minds, an invisible force that draws us toward what we cannot have. And yet, once it is within our grasp, the magic often fades. Why does the mind turn desire into something almost forbidden, something amplified by distance and inaccessibility? This is the paradox of human desire, a paradox that has fascinated philosophers, artists, and scientists for millennia. From the streets of ancient Athens to the courts of Renaissance Europe, thinkers like Plato and Aristotle pondered the nature of longing. Plato, in his dialogues, explored how desire is not merely a yearning for possession, but a pursuit of something higher, something transcendent that always seems beyond our reach. Aristotle, too, recognized the subtle dance between value and scarcity. It was not the object itself that captivated the heart, but the effort required to attain it, the chase, the uncertainty, the distance. History is full of stories that illustrate this timeless pattern. In the courts of kings and emperors, courtiers and rivals learned that visibility could be dangerous and inaccessibility seductive. A distant ruler, elusive in audience and temperamental in favor, inspired devotion, admiration, and even obsession. Forbidden love, too, has always carried a weight far greater than mere availability. The allure of what cannot be easily possessed creates fascination, elevating ordinary attraction into something almost mystical. In the modern age, this same paradox manifests in ways both subtle and obvious. On social media, those who are less responsive, those who appear elusive, gain followers, attention, and perceived status. Celebrities cultivate mystique by carefully controlling access, teasing glimpses rather than full exposure. In the complex dance of dating, psychology shows that human attention is most engaged when something feels uncertain or distant, when the mind is challenged to pursue rather than receive without effort. Ultimately, this paradox reveals a fundamental truth about human nature. Attention is a currency, and desire is measured not simply by possession, but by the tension of pursuit. When we ignore, when we withhold, or when we step back, we trigger a psychological alchemy in others. They begin to value us more, not for what we offer in the moment, but for the possibility, the mystery, and the scarcity that surrounds us. By understanding this, we glimpse a deeper principle underlying social interaction, attraction, and influence, a principle that threads through history, psychology, and the very essence of what it means to desire. The science of scarcity and attention. Why does distance make the heart grow fonder? Why does withholding attention often intensify desire? The answers lie not in whim or chance, but in the deep architecture of the human mind. Psychology and neuroscience reveal that scarcity is one of the most powerful levers of influence ever discovered. When something becomes limited, when access is restricted, the brain reacts with urgency, intensity, and focus. Scarcity amplifies perceived value. One of the most striking explanations comes from reactance theory. Human beings, when faced with a restriction on freedom, whether it is the ability to possess an object, connect with someone, or gain approval, experience a subtle, often subconscious urge to reclaim that freedom. In other words, when someone appears distant or unattainable, the mind interprets it as a loss, and the desire to restore access grows stronger. What seems counterintuitive is in fact deeply ingrained. Being ignored doesn't reduce interest, it fuels it. The scarcity principle complements this phenomenon. From economics to social behavior, scarcity increases perceived worth. Think of limited edition art, exclusive memberships, or even the allure of a rare opportunity in history. Across experiments, Humans consistently assign higher value to what is less accessible, sometimes irrationally so. Our ancestors relied on scarcity for survival: food, resources, mates. But today, this same wiring shapes our relationships, our social hierarchies, and even our engagement with media. Attachment psychology adds another layer. Humans are wired to seek connection, to pursue recognition, validation, and acceptance. When attention is withheld, the absence creates tension. The brain begins to fill the gap, imagining possibilities, constructing narratives, and investing in pursuit. Social dynamics illustrate this principle everywhere. The more ambiguous or elusive someone appears, the more energy and focus others devote to them, often without realizing why. Even in everyday life, the patterns are visible. Childhood friendships show it. Someone who seems just out of reach becomes a source of fascination. Workplace hierarchies reveal it. Those who remain composed and distant, rather than readily available, command respect and intrigue. Dating psychology confirms it. Uncertainty fuels attraction. Anticipation heightens desire. The mechanisms may be subtle, but their effects are profound, shaping behavior in ways we rarely acknowledge. Understanding the science behind scarcity and attention is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a revelation about human nature. It exposes why ignoring someone, stepping back, or maintaining a subtle distance can shift the balance of desire. It also hints at the darker side of human manipulation, showing how advertisers, politicians, and influencers exploit these same principles to capture hearts, minds, and loyalty. In the interplay between scarcity and attention, we see the invisible forces that shape human fascination, attraction, and social power. Historical cases of influence. Through distance across history, the most powerful figures understood a simple, almost paradoxical truth. Influence grows not through constant presence, but through carefully maintained distance. Elusiveness became a tool, a weapon, and a form of subtle power. From kings and emperors to philosophers and revolutionaries, those who mastered the art of inaccessibility often commanded greater loyalty, fascination, and fear than those who sought to be universally visible. Consider the royal courts of Europe. Courtiers who clamored for the favor of kings often found themselves discarded, while those who moved with restraint, who carefully timed their appearances and kept their intentions veiled, rose to positions of immense influence. Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, cultivated mystique by controlling access to Versailles. Nobles who overstepped or appeared too eager were swiftly marginalized, while those who mastered patience, subtlety, and strategic distance became indispensable. Inaccessibility amplified their value. The court's obsession with proximity to power was fueled not by generosity, but by scarcity. Political leaders, too, have wielded distance as a psychological tool. Napoleon Bonaparte, though a public figure, often manipulated perception through calculated aloofness. Letters to allies were carefully crafted, meetings orchestrated with precision, and his occasional unpredictability made even loyal generals question, anticipate, and ultimately become more devoted. In these dynamics, attention itself became a form of currency, traded for influence, loyalty, and devotion. Even beyond politics, history reveals the same principle in human relationships. Forbidden love, often romanticized in literature and legend, derives much of its intensity from unavailability. The distant beloved, the forbidden courtship, the rival kept at arm's length. All of these examples illustrate that desire is amplified by challenge, ambiguity, and the conscious or unconscious use of absence. When humans cannot easily possess or control, they project longing, fascination, and value onto the object of desire. The modern world continues these patterns, though technology has changed the arena. Social media influencers, celebrities, and public figures have adapted centuries-old strategies for a new age. A subtle delay in response, a selective appearance in public, a controlled leak of information. These acts echo the historical practices of courts, palaces, and political halls. Followers, fans, and audiences mirror the same ancient tendencies. Uncertainty breeds attention, distance breeds fascination, and scarcity creates value. By studying these historical cases, a pattern emerges. Distance and inaccessibility are not accidental. They are powerful levers of influence, shaped by psychology and perfected over generations. This is a force that transcends time, revealing a universal truth about human behavior. The same mechanisms that guided empires, courtiers, and lovers now shape modern interactions, from social hierarchies to digital attention economies. Understanding this is to see beneath the surface of human desire, to recognize the invisible currents that drive fascination, attraction, and social power. The psychology of ignoring. Attraction, power, and respect. In human relationships, the act of ignoring someone is often misunderstood. It can feel cruel or indifferent on the surface, but psychology reveals it as one of the most potent tools of influence, attraction, and even social respect. The act of stepping back, withholding attention, or appearing emotionally unresponsive taps directly into deep, unconscious mechanisms of the mind. At the core of this dynamic is non-reactivity. When someone does not immediately respond to attention or emotion, they signal a profound sense of self-sufficiency and inner control. The brain interprets this as strength. It is as if the person who holds their distance possesses a hidden power, a stability that is rare and compelling. This quiet authority triggers fascination. It commands attention without a single word. In contrast, overeagerness often signals neediness, scarcity of self, or dependency, qualities that subtly diminish perceived value. Then there are the mirror neurons, the cells in our brains that make us emulate and resonate with the emotions of others. When someone is distant, the mind instinctively mirrors their perceived inaccessibility. We begin to imagine them, fill in the gaps, and invest mental energy in pursuit. Uncertainty becomes magnetic. Unpredictability creates allure, and absence becomes a canvas onto which our desires and fantasies are projected. Social hierarchies further complicate the picture. Power, influence, and respect are rarely granted to those who are immediately available. In offices, communities, and social groups, those who maintain composure, create space, and resist immediate gratification often ascend. By contrast, those who seek constant validation or accessibility often lose subtle authority. Ignoring in this context is not an act of cruelty. It is an unconscious display of autonomy, signaling that your attention is earned, not given freely. Even attraction in intimate relationships reflects this principle. Dating psychology repeatedly demonstrates that perceived unavailability fuels desire. Mystery, ambiguity, and selective attention are powerful motivators, compelling the mind to pursue, analyze, and imagine. The tension created by distance is not simply emotional. It is neurological, rooted in deep-seated survival mechanisms that reward effort, strategy, and persistence. Yet understanding the psychology of ignoring also requires nuance. Intent matters. Ignoring can be manipulative, cruel, or toxic when wielded to control, deceive, or harm. But when applied with awareness and self-respect, it becomes a tool of personal sovereignty, a way to establish boundaries, maintain dignity, and cultivate genuine respect from others. This is where attraction, power, and social influence converge. The ability to command attention without desperation, to inspire, desire without coercion, and to create fascination through presence and absence alike. In the subtle interplay of attention and distance, human behavior reveals its most compelling truths. Ignoring is not absence of care. It is the conscious cultivation of value, a silent art that reshapes relationships, social hierarchies, and even our own understanding of influence. It is both a psychological lever and a philosophical lesson, one that teaches that power, respect, and attraction are never merely given. They are earned, often through the strategic mastery of space, silence, and self-possession. Modern society and the weaponization of attention. In the modern age, the paradox of attention and desire has become not just a social phenomenon, but a carefully engineered force. Every notification, every trending post, every delayed response is designed to capture your mind, exploit your cravings, and keep you engaged. What once was a subtle interplay of scarcity and fascination has evolved into a sophisticated system of manipulation, where attention is the currency and human desire is the commodity. Social media platforms are the most obvious example. Algorithms prioritize what is rare, provocative, or emotionally charged, creating scarcity where none naturally exists. A delayed reply, a selective post, or an image of someone seemingly unavailable sparks engagement, fascination, and curiosity. Users, unaware, become participants in their own desire, chasing signals engineered to trigger psychological responses rooted in our evolutionary wiring. Likes, follows, and shares are no longer just feedback. They are instruments that exploit the human mind's innate hunger for connection, status, and scarcity. Celebrities, influencers, and public figures have mastered this art of strategic inaccessibility. Carefully curated appearances, moments of absence, or selective engagement amplify their allure. By appearing unpredictable or elusive, they command more attention, provoke more conversation, and solidify their influence. The same principles that guided emperors and courtiers now operate in a digital ecosystem, revealing that the mechanics of fascination remain unchanged. Only the tools have evolved. Even politics has embraced this phenomenon. Public figures use distance and ambiguity to manipulate perception, creating desire, loyalty, or even obsession. Statements are measured, appearances are controlled, and information is strategically released to maximize intrigue. Followers are drawn not to the truth itself, but to the tension between accessibility and mystery, a tension that has been refined across centuries and now amplified by technology. The consequences extend far beyond entertainment or politics. Entire societal behaviors are shaped by attention manipulation, from consumer habits to social movements, from ideological engagement to personal relationships. Scarcity, delayed response, and inaccessibility are not accidents. They are designed, features that exploit human desire for value, challenge, and pursuit. Understanding this dynamic is no longer just a matter of curiosity. It is a necessity for anyone seeking autonomy, clarity, and agency in a world increasingly designed to manipulate what we value most, our attention. Modern society has weaponized what was once a natural psychological pattern, what humans naturally respond to. Distance, scarcity, uncertainty has become a tool for influence, persuasion, and control. Recognizing it is the first step toward reclaiming agency, learning not to be passively drawn, and understanding that fascination and desire are not just personal experiences, They are the product of forces far larger than ourselves, silently shaping the way we think, feel, and act. Ethical reflections and personal application. Having explored the paradoxes of desire, the psychology of ignoring, and the weaponization of attention, the question arises, what should we do with this knowledge? Understanding human behavior is not merely an intellectual exercise, it carries ethical responsibility. The same principles that explain fascination and attraction can be wielded for manipulation, control, or harm. Yet, when applied thoughtfully, they can guide personal growth, social awareness, and the cultivation of authentic influence. The first ethical consideration is intent. Ignoring someone strategically can enhance attraction or respect, but if it is used to deceive, control, or hurt, it becomes an abuse of psychological insight. The power lies not in the mechanics themselves, but in the purpose behind them. Awareness of these dynamics should encourage reflection. Are we using this knowledge to enrich relationships and self-understanding, or to satisfy selfish desires at the expense of others? Philosophy offers timeless guidance. Stoicism teaches detachment from external validation, emphasizing inner autonomy and self-mastery. Buddhism encourages mindful engagement, understanding desire without being enslaved to it. Even existentialist thought reminds us that freedom comes from owning our choices, rather than surrendering to the invisible currents of others' attention. By integrating these insights, we learn to navigate desire consciously, rather than being unconsciously swept along by it. In practical terms, personal application is subtle but profound. Cultivating presence without desperation, maintaining boundaries without cruelty, and valuing our own attention as much as we seek the attention of others are all ways to harness these dynamics ethically. Self-respect becomes magnetic, not through manipulation, but through authenticity and awareness. By stepping back, we do not create distance for deceit. We create space for clarity, integrity, and mutual respect. Ultimately, this reflection transforms understanding into wisdom. Human attraction, fascination, and attention are not mere social curiosities. They are windows into the deeper structure of human behavior. By applying these principles ethically, we can navigate relationships with greater insight, resist manipulation in modern society, and cultivate influence that is earned, not forced. The knowledge of why people are drawn to what they cannot easily possess becomes a mirror, reflecting not only how others respond to us, but how we choose to engage with the world. Conclusion. The subtle power of being unreachable. As we reach the end of this exploration, a pattern emerges, a subtle, almost invisible force that has shaped human interaction across history, psychology, and society. The power of being unreachable, of maintaining distance, is not about rejection, cruelty, or indifference. It is about presence, autonomy, and the conscious cultivation of value. It is the paradox that defines desire. We are drawn to what challenges us, what remains just out of reach, and what cannot be claimed without effort. Throughout history, rulers, courtiers, lovers, and leaders have leveraged this principle, consciously or unconsciously, to command attention, respect, and influence. In modern society, it manifests in digital culture, social media, and the very ways we engage with others. Whether through silence, mystery, or deliberate scarcity, the same dynamics continue to shape our relationships and the way we are perceived. Yet the true lesson lies not in manipulation, but in self-awareness. To understand why people are drawn to what they cannot easily have is to gain insight into the deeper currents of human desire, and more importantly, into ourselves. Autonomy, self-respect, and authenticity create a presence that draws fascination without coercion. By valuing our own attention As much as we seek that of others, we reclaim the subtle power inherent in inaccessibility. The paradox remains. Distance creates desire, absence amplifies value, and selective engagement shapes perception. But when wielded consciously and ethically, this understanding transforms from a tool of manipulation into a guide for thoughtful living. The subtle power of being unreachable is not about keeping people at bay. It is about mastering the delicate balance between presence and absence, attraction and autonomy, attention and self-possession. In the end, the lesson is timeless. Human fascination is drawn to what challenges it, to what intrigues and resists. By embracing this paradox, by observing it, and by applying it wisely, we navigate relationships, social hierarchies, and our own desires with insight, dignity, and power. In the dance of connection and distance, we find a profound truth. Value is not given. It is earned, often in the quiet space between presence and absence.